How can I increase my attraction to my spouse?
Yeah, good question. So trying to think through, maybe I don't have the same level of attraction that I did. That's changed in some way, and I'm trying to rekindle that, care about kind of cultivating that in my heart, that the relationship matters to me, my marriage matters to me. So I appreciate the heart from which the question comes and your desire to be intentional in developing your relationship and protecting your relationship. So I start with kind of identifying some ways in which that drift can happen. Right? So how do we get here? Why is it the experience that I'm having today with my spouse different than where we started at? And the first thing I would want to look at is the nature and the quality of the relationship, right? That there's an effect and an influence in our attraction to individuals based on how we experience them. And that if our emotional experience with someone is really negative, it's going to affect their overall attractiveness to us. Right? Even if they, appearance wise, externally, they're exactly the same as when we were first together, that if the cumulative experiences or life together have been really negative, the overall attraction that I experience is going to be negative, and that it's not going to be a good thing. So consider whether or not there's some things that need some attention there, because you're not going to be able to just like will yourself to be more attracted. Like that's not how attraction works. But you can identify the things that are off-putting, what's getting in the way of feeling attraction, and work on resolving those things. So that's one piece that you can look at. The other thing to consider is there a comparison thing going on? Because that'll really get in the way as well. That if you're always comparing your spouse to someone else, or a societal standard of some sort, or beauty norm or something of that nature, what you're doing is you're really growing and fueling discontent kind of in your relationship.
Yeah, I
Right?
think that can kind of go along with expectations, kind of unrealistic expectations for your spouse.
Totally. Yeah. That you can be comparing your spouse to expectations that aren't realistic and aren't fair in the relationship. Uh, that can be either sometimes a previous version of themselves, and we can compare our spouse to an idea that we don't age, and that somehow my spouse is not supposed to be affected by the forces of nature and time and the reality of sin's effect on the body, and
I
the
mean,
fact that,
right?
what's that?
Wouldn't that be nice, right?
Yeah, I mean, that would be fabulous, right? That would be awesome. We would all really love that. And yet, that's not really the world that we live in. That we'll get a new body someday that's not affected by sin like this one is. There'll be new heavens and new earth. But today ain't that day. We live in the realities of a broken world, but if in our heart we have this expectation of our spouse that those things wouldn't affect them or impact them, then we're doing this comparison thing again with something that's not reality, that's not real. And we're cultivating a discontent with our spouse within our heart. And so if we're doing that, then it's going to affect our attraction towards our spouse, right? Because we're always doing this comparison piece in our heart. So if that's part of the tape that's playing in our head, then we want to address that. We want to stop that. On the affirmative side, what we can do is we can really be intentional about focusing our lens on the things that are praiseworthy about our spouse and all their different quality traits, and to magnify by way of our focus those aspects of our spouse that are attractive that desirable and attractive quality traits around our spouse. And as we refuse to give airtime to those comparative and detracting things, and focus our airtime, kind of watering the plant of attraction towards our spouse, the one will grow and the other will atrophy. It's likely that we got here in the first place from a flip-flop of that, kind of a focus on all the things that are wrong with our spouse and a lack of focus on the things that are right with our spouse. And over time, that shifts our attractions.
Right. And that, I mean, that's easy to do. You know, when you get married and you start living with someone and the walls kind of fall down and you get to see, oh, this is how that person reacts to things. You know, it's easy to start just picking at the things that you don't like.
Right, because when we're dating or we're engaged, we're love drunk, right? Like we're like intoxicated with all of the hormones that are a part of new love, right? And so that really causes our vision to be focused on all the things that are right about this person, and we can be even blind sometimes to the things that are not right, that are there, that are not good. But then we kind of sober up as we get into marriage a little bit, and we kind of see the whole picture of who they are, and the
Right.
things that are yeah, that are not so attractive become a little bit more apparent and more in our face.
Totally. And there's this balance of I find you attractive and I love these things about you, but also I recognize that you are a broken human being and there has to be grace for that. And
Yeah.
there's this balance that is very difficult to find, but you know, with sanctification, hopefully it comes eventually. I don't know.
Well, marriage is a pathway to that for sure. Because if anything will expose your sinful tendencies and your broken heart, it's marriage. It will really bring those things to the surface. So you can either dump them in your spouse's lap and blame them for it, or you can own them and say, "Oh, I hate that this is inside of me, and I want to grow and mature through that."